big welcome back to the channel. We're out in our greenhouse today. It is super hot. Most of the country is burning up right now, just like we are. It's like 90 degrees out here today. Check some soil temperatures here. 93 in the sun. Some shadier spots, about 92, 93, sitting pretty hot at the top. Dig down a little bit. Okay, so we dropped about 10 degrees, digging 1 inch in the soil. You can see all of our white dust. We had to put some DE, diatomaceous earth, because when we pulled all of our lettuce and all of our winter crops out of here to plant all of our summer stuff, we noticed that there was a ton of slugs and snails up underneath all of them. So we had to really get this cleaned out and clean the bed. We got all of our carrots that we're letting go to seed here. Some massive seed clusters on here. Gonna harvest all those seeds. Now it has been absolutely blazing. We are not used to it yet. It's sitting about 90 degrees, like I said. Soil temps are sitting about the same. But what I want to talk about today is how we're achieving cooler temperatures in our floor just 1 inch under the soil. Normally we have to have heavy mulch, about 6 to 8 inches of mulch, in order to drop 20 to 40 degrees in temperature going down into the soil for the summertime. So this experiment I performed was with our old solar system that we used to heat our greenhouse. We had a large compost pile out back and ran water through it and through the floor of this greenhouse, and used this large bubbling container behind us for an overflow to draw from and to drain into. So instead of using compost to heat our coil, we buried it in cooked compost, completely finished cooled compost, and then put some mulch and straw on top, and we're achieving 20 to 30 degrees cooler temperatures coming out of our ground, basically using the geothermal cooling from the old compost pile to transfer all of the hot and warm water from in here through that pile to cool it off, to bring cooler water back into our greenhouse through our floor and thus back into our overflow tank. So I'm completely multitasking all of this. I'm using this as basically a small compost tea and a rooting station to propagate new plants to sell at our market here. Which brings me to the fact that this is our second week that we successfully completed our farmer's market, and we did great. My wife sold all of her stuff. I sold quite a few plants. I'm figuring out that people like perennial oddity plants that are edible. So that is my specialty. I just multiply all of our plants. Like here we have all of this lovage. We've got tons of yarrow, just tons and tons of things lining the whole outside of our greenhouse, all propagated just to go to market. We are making a good profit off the last 2 weeks, so if we can continue the streak we're on, we're going to be in business. We'll be making our own business very soon here, and on to bigger and better things like we hope for. All right, back to the heating and cooling of this greenhouse. So we have our old compost pile. You can kind of see it through the hole here. So we repurposed this compost pile, recoiled up all our coils and built it up, and gave about 2 feet of compost and mulch on top of our pile as a buffer between our coils and the surface and the sun, so we are able to drop our temperatures down pretty significantly. Take a sunny temperature. That temperature in the sunny spot is 104. Come over to our water. We're sitting about 73 in our water. I mean, I have the shade cloth over it. That is just to protect our little cuttings we got in there. And now we have our bubbler running all the time when the sun is shining on it. Even with a minimal sunlight, that little bubbler will put some good bubbles up and keep that water moving and keep the water aerated for our roots to grow. That little blue hose transfers water up through our coils and then brings it back down through the whole entire floor of our greenhouse. We have it running on a timer, so it's on its timer. The timer's flashing right now, so we have 15 minutes of downtime, and then it'll run for 45, store energy in that time. So while this bubbler system is not running, we have our backup system constantly flowing water overnight, and it never stops. It constantly runs. It has enough backup in that 9-volt battery in our system to constantly run on its timer, because we have full sun. Even on cloudy days, it charges up enough to run all night. So we are safe as far as losing our cuttings to stagnant water or having bugs or anything nasty happening in here. These look pretty wilty. I just stuck these in. I took this whole flat of cuttings out and had propagated them for our market last weekend. All of them had rooted up, so I stuck them in pots, put them up on our shelf to sit, and they completely took off. We sold everything that we propagated. We're just starting a few new ones. We got some more blueberries, some sage, some lemon balm. Those are all fresh, so they're kind of wilty. But this system is really cooling the floor in this greenhouse. We have all the sun heating up the top surface, but as soon as you break the crust there and get down, you can feel, I can physically feel how cool that is. So this system is completely ran off of solar panels, two little tiny solar panels out there. They're about 8 by 5 inches, 8 by 6 inches both, and they are enough to pull energy to run this bubbler constantly when the sun is shining, and to run all of these water systems and move this water 24/7 without delay on the timer system that we have set. Very, very cool stuff. So I just wanted to share this experiment. I'm out here sweating my butt off because it is super, super hot and there's not a whole lot of airflow today. We have our little makeshift solar panel fan running, but it is not enough to really get a whole lot of airflow. I got to find another system. So really the only place we're dropping the ball right now is with the airflow, but we have good enough airflow flowing straight through that window, right back through this window, and our door constantly stays open. So we are not cooking anything in here. Everything's doing wonderfully. We planted these tomatoes. We've got all these tomatillos coming up. All of our tomatoes and peppers, some eggplants, all types of stuff mixed in here. We've been super busy growing for ourselves, but we lost track of all the plants growing for ourselves because we've been busy with the market. We have all of these coming up, going out into pots to be sold. So as it's gotten super hot and everything has changed, we've been dealing with different types of problems. We had snow all over not that long ago, and now we're dealing with 100 degrees in the greenhouse. So what we're finding is that even underneath, we're able to keep this side of the brick cooler than this side of the brick. I mean, it has thermal transfer under there, so we are heating these plants up at the base, but this hose transferring through here is keeping this cool. So using these starting trays to basically block sun, it keeps underneath cooler automatically, but when we couple it with our cooling lines, basically it keeps the bricks very cool underneath. So we will double these up and have rows, so I will basically not even be able to walk in here. So I'll stick the seed starts and then age them out to the finished plants. I have everything stuck all over outside so I could walk in here right now. So we're finding some pretty interesting results. I mean, we knew that the shade was going to be cooler than in the light, but with using geothermal and just kind of experimenting, I think we're getting nice cool temperatures on the floor of our greenhouse, allowing everything to just thrive. We're able to start seed down here. It gets warm enough and it stays warm, but we don't want it to get too warm. And there's a lot of people on parts of the country right now that are just getting cooked and all the plants are getting baked. So we thought we'd put this out there. Don't forget to mulch. We use heavy mulch because that is one way to keep your ground cool, everything outside your greenhouse basically. I don't like to mulch in here because we don't want to have to work around it. And then we have wood chips worked into our soil, and then we're losing nitrogen and it slows the growth of your plants. So we're trying to keep these beds all clean. We have DE all of them right now because we had a slug problem, but they're all taken care of. We've got tons and tons of peas coming on, just tons of peas. We started these about a month ago, a little bit more. So as we rounded the turn from spring, winter, spring, right into summer here, there wasn't really a transition. We had some warm weather and then we got frozen, and now we're just cooking. So I think we're just gonna roll with this heat. So we transitioned to everything growing for hot temperatures, just trying to cool everything down. We flipped these systems and we're doing the opposite of what we were doing before, which is kind of interesting, but we didn't have to do a whole lot to achieve the desired results to cool this greenhouse. Now, shade cloths are an absolute must. I would even use a shade cloth if I didn't have tree cover. If I didn't have canopies up over my garden, I would definitely have a shade cloth. That cools your ground that much more, maybe 20 degrees cooler in the shade with a 50%, 70% cloth. So that brings me back to mulching. Any ground that's open and out in the exposed sun for more than 6 hours a day, I like to mulch around our plants, because we are measuring about 30 degrees cooler underneath our mulch that's been baking in the sun. When you dig down, it's still wet, and it's definitely working. So that's just a few things to keep in mind. I just wanted to show our experiment here. Now this is our propagation station. We have been hitting our farmers market, and I'm kind of putting two videos into one here, but the two are intertwined. We are using this system to cool the floor, to start seedlings and plants, to put in pots to transplant and later sell at the market. We already have our next round of stuff outside our greenhouse, and we have all of our starting stuff plus a ton of other stuff we got going on. So I wanted to share the successes I found by experimenting and kind of playing with the systems we got, and now we're able to start all these on the floor. Before, they were getting pretty well cooked. The bottoms were 100 degrees. Now we're clocking 70 something under there. That's perfect. That is good seed starting temperatures, and that's good root temperatures for those seedlings also. They're not getting cooked. And originally, all of our bricks in our walkway here, nice 2-inch stone, they're thick. We had them to hold heat all winter. When the sun shined in, it would radiate and hold heat through the night. Now we're trying to keep them from holding heat. We're trying to keep them from heating up. I usually have all of my flats out on these, like I said, and that keeps them in the shade, and it keeps them about 70, 73 degrees under there. So that is perfect. Like I said, you can get those seeds started. And I'm sure there's a million different ways that someone could achieve what I achieved with these little systems. You could basically run a garden hose under here with cool water, or run it underneath your bed and cool it down. It's no different. So I know everybody's dealing with super hot temperatures, and it only gets hotter every year. So we are trying to cool our plants and keep them alive and keep them growing well. I hope everyone found this information somewhat useful, or can use something that we're doing here. And if anybody has any questions, don't forget to drop it in the comments below. I will get right back to you. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe while you're at it.